Hi, my name is Kyle and I am a systems engineer with AGI. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at our flight segment definition tool inside of our testing and evaluation toolkit. Looking inside the software, as long as you have TTK installed, you should see a TTK toolbar here at the top. In this video, we'll be focusing mainly on these two icons right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the icon that's on the left first. That's our flight segment definition. And so really what this tool is going to allow me to do is it allows me to either create and or specify specific time intervals that are related to a test event. In this case, we're looking at a own-ship aircraft, and we're going to say there's a radar system on board, and we're tracking this target 1 aircraft. And so we're going to look at an example of defining specific time intervals where that radar system is gathering data. So looking inside the tool, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my own ship here on the left, my XF1 aircraft, and I'm going to click to create a new segment. Here you'll see it just gives me the option of specifying what subsystem I would like to create these time intervals for. This is really just a way of organizing your time intervals to a specific subsystem. So you can have, it's fine to have one, you can have multiple, and if there's a subsystem that you want that's not listed, you can simply click the plus icon here and add your own new subsystem. Here I'm just going to pick one of the defaults, which is just radar, and I'll hit OK. And you can now see that that subsystem has been added to the own ship over here on the left. Moving over here on the right, the first thing I'll point out is just the main window here. This is where all of our flight segments will show up once we start adding them. Let me then next point out our show on timeline option here. This is pretty straightforward. If that's enabled, as I add flight segments, you'll see them added down to the timeline view here at the bottom. And if I were to uncheck that, they wouldn't show up there, but they would still be created. So let's first show an example of manually creating a time interval. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click the plus icon here, and you'll see that that manually adds in a new row here. It gives me a default segment name. You can feel free to change that if you would like. For the start time and the stop time, those can either be typed in manually, or you can actually scroll to specific points of interest inside the scenario and set the start time and stop time. So that's what I'm going to show here really quick. So I've already got my animation time set to a spot here where I'd like to start. The XF1 is generally pointing in the direction of target 1. So I'll go ahead and I can click this clock icon, and you'll see that that will manually set the start time. Now it'll also set the stop time here. I think it just defaults to 15 minutes later. But I'm going to go ahead and change that. So first I'm going to come down to my timeline view and move the scroll bar. And let's say I want to stop right around there. I can then come back and adjust that stop time. Now if I go ahead and zoom in to our own ship here, so you can see it a little bit more clearly, notice that we have this thicker green line that's laying over top of our route. So this is coming from the flight segment tool. And you can actually see the default color here for that segment is green. And this is just simply a way of representing more easily in the 3D graphics window the specific times where we are having a test event occur. One thing I can do from the flight analysis tool is if I right click the own ship, you can actually hide the main route, and that way you can have it set up just so that you're only seeing the aircraft's route during those times of interest. I'm going to go ahead and re-enable that route, and let's go ahead and remove this manual interval and look at bringing in time intervals from some external file. So in this case, let's say this is a post-flight event analysis where I've already got all the data captured from this particular test event. Say one of those data files just contains the start and stop times of those time intervals of interest. What I can do here is I can choose the from file under import segments. And here we're actually looking in one of our installed directories. It should be about the same file path for STK11. It would just be STK11 here. And these are sample files that are included when you install TETK. And these are actually the sample files that are leveraged in our TETK guided training, which you can check that out on our help page. From here, I'm going to go ahead and select our radarruns.txt, and I'll hit open. And if you want to get some help on the format of what that text file should look like, it's pretty straightforward, but again, feel free to check out our help page. You can even just simply click the help button here and it'll take you right to the relevant page. So this file contains 3 separate time intervals. We can see the start time, stop time. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK to import those. And again, you'll see it just gives some type of default segment name. I'm fine with that. It's now set the start and stop times. If I look in my 3D graphics window, you can see here's run 1 and runs 2 and 3 kind of a little bit hard to see. They lay over top of each other a little bit. So let's now talk about the assets section here. What I can do here is I can specify specific assets or targets of interest relative to the ownership during those particular test events. So you could do this on a run-by-run basis, or you can leverage the Set All Assets button here if you'd like to apply that asset across all of the run intervals that you've defined. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose the Target 1 aircraft as the selected asset, and I'm going to hit OK. And as I do this, it's going off in the background, and it's actually doing a couple different things which are going to help out later on as I look to do some additional advanced analysis using TETK. One thing that pops out, you may have noticed it or not, is over here in the flight analysis tool, as soon as I added that asset, it then went off and created 3 unique link lines. And all a link line is it's really just a line that's going to be drawn in the 3D graphics window that's connecting our ownership to our asset or multiple assets. So that's one other thing to point out. You can have multiple assets. In this case, we just have one. If I pull this down and scroll ahead to one of those particular time intervals, so let's go to the first one here, you can now see that link line that's connecting the ownership and our target aircraft. You can also notice the data display. That was also created by default. That was actually created before I even assigned the asset. That was simply created as I defined the flight segment, and those show up here in the flight analysis tool as well. One of the other powerful things that happens as soon as I assign an asset here is it goes off and it creates all of these additional vector components inside of our analysis workbench tool. So if I open that up really quickly and take a look at the vector geometry tab here for our XF1 aircraft, if I'd opened this up before I assigned the asset, there only would have been a couple different vector components in here. But now that I've assigned that asset, it's again in the background, it's gone off and it's created multiple other components ahead of time, which I can then go ahead and leverage as I do some additional analysis with the tool. The last thing I'll point out here is if I scroll to the right, there is some additional settings for each of these runs, such as setting the line width for that segment that's being drawn along the route. You can enter some type of custom description. And then there's also these checkboxes here for show segment, show annotation, show assets. The segment is whether or not you're showing that colored line along the route. The annotation refers to the data display for that run. You can see it disappeared there in the lower left. And then the assets is referring to the link line connecting those two. So if you don't want to have to come into this window here every time and individually click each of these, say you wanted to just turn them all off, that's where we're going to then take a look at the other icon, which was just to the right of the flight segment definition. And this one is called our flight segment control. And really all this is it's just a quicker way of turning on and off some of those options that we saw over in the flight segment definition window. So here I have a specific on-off button where I can quickly turn off, say, everything for all 3 segments if I wanted to. All right, and that concludes our video on the flight segment definition tool. Thank you very much.